From Cornwall to Birmingham and Johnston and Bexhill, here's Ruben Spire on the radio.
Hello to Rae Leigh. How are you today?
I'm good, Ruben. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for letting me interview you today. I can take you back to when you first started. Well, let's hope anyway. So can you tell me how long you've been a singer-songwriter for?
Well, I've been singing and writing songs pretty much since I learned to write and rhyme. And I started playing piano from the moment my parents allowed me to get lessons, which was around 6 years old. So I was always attracted to music. I grew up in the church, so worship music was a massive part of my life. And as soon as I was old enough, I joined the worship team and all that sort of stuff. But I didn't share my original songs with anyone for a very, very long time, like until I was 31 years old. There were a few times where like I let a friend or a boyfriend like read lyrics, or I recorded a mini demo version of a song for my friend's 21st birthday. Little things like that, that I might like sneak out a little bit about, oh, here's a song I wrote. But nothing like I released music or was recording music. I didn't think I was good enough. I didn't think I could sing because I didn't sound like anyone else was on the radio. And I guess I didn't feel like I had a voice that was worth listening to or anything important to say. And yeah, so then I didn't really release or record any music until 2019. It's also when I did my first proper open mic, where I went to an open mic and I performed a few of my own original songs. And then in January of 2020, I released my first ever single called All I Can Do.
Can you tell me about All I Can Do?
Yeah, so in 2016, I think it was 15 actually, I had gone through a really massive court case, which I was the key witness in. It was a public prosecution for a child sexual abuse court case, and it was really intense, and it just wiped me out emotionally and physically. And my husband, I had 2 kids at the time. My husband was like, you know what, you just need to get away. He knew how important music was to my healing and therapy. And he goes, do you know what would be really good for you? It'd be really good if you just went somewhere away, out of internet, and, you know, where you could write songs and hang out with other people and just play guitar. And I was like, oh, that sounds amazing, but I'm sure it doesn't exist, you know. And there was one in Australia that we Googled, and it was only 2 weeks away from when he had suggested it. And he called up the guy who ran that course and told him my story and said, do you mind if she comes along? And John from this place near Tamworth in Australia said, yep, send her down, we'll make space. I wasn't meant to be there. They hadn't scheduled for me to be there. I wasn't meant to like co-write with anyone. I knew nothing about country music at this stage as well. And it was a complete 100% country music songwriting retreat. And they just welcomed me in with open arms. And when I first walked in, I met someone called Peter Smokey Dawson. And Pete just made me feel so at home. And I was so broken at the time, and he was fairly broken at the time too. And we sat in front of this massive fire in the middle of winter, drinking lots of red wine and talking to each other about our troubles. And amongst that is when we got to that point where we wrote the song All I Can Do together. And it really was about that moment where we just feel like we've lost absolutely everything, which at his stage of his life, you know, he lost his wife and he was going through a lot of heartbreak, and I had felt I had lost my soul. I was struggling with postnatal depression and post-traumatic stress disorder, and I'd just been through a really intense court case that took 3 years. And we were just empty. And so together we wrote that song. And I remember when I played it for the first time at that retreat, that was one of the first times I'd sung in public and played guitar. And there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Everyone was crying. It was beautiful. So that was the first song I released. And I released it in January 2020. Family were really close to the fires that were happening in Australia and Victoria. And I was living in Queensland at the time, and I met someone who helped me produce the song, but I still hadn't released anything yet. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know anything about PR or music videos or anything like that. I literally just did a little press release one sheet on my own and sent it out to a few people I knew and some radio stations in my local area and some bloggers, and podcasters. And I released it to Spotify and was just playing at open mics and stuff. And I guess I just wanted to, even though it was written from a point of despair where I wanted to be able to do something, and I couldn't. When the fires were happening, I felt so far away and there was really nothing I could do. And so I felt like this song was I just want to encourage the people that I know are down there. I had friends who were physically fighting the fires, who were volunteer firefighters, and I wanted to do and say something to support them, and let them know that I was thinking of them, because there was nothing I could do so far away. And then it blew up. So after I released my first song, a week later, Pink was donating money and they were raising all this money for the wildlife, for the fires, and yada, yada, yada. And it became a benefit concert. So I felt very overwhelmed by it all after that. And then so I kind of hid behind the shadows. I was like, oh, I just released this little song. It's nothing. I've got nothing else to give, really. And so it kind of blew away. And then, COVID hit just after the next single. So it's been a wild ride from the beginning. But fires weren't my fault, I swear, and neither was COVID. It just seems to be following me, and it's just been one drama after another to overcome. But I've been having fun and just doing what I think's right.
My dad was a very huge part of my life. So can you tell me what Father's Love is all about?
Father's Love. Well, I wrote that for my dad's 70th birthday. So it was a birthday present song, which as a poor starving independent artist is often a present, because it's a way of thinking of someone. But that's so much about the relationship that I personally have with my father, but also relationships that I've seen other people have with their parents, and that it can be heartbreaking sometimes, but at the same time still very healing. It's so much of who we are. Our parents define so much of who we become as adults, whether we choose to be like them or not like them. And my dad's a Vietnam veteran, and he's been a pastor all of my life that I've known him. That since I was born, he worked on a farm and did engineering and truck driving and stuff like that before I was born. But I respect a lot of the things that he did and a lot of the things that he's done, that he didn't necessarily want to do, but he was asked to do. He was conscripted at the age of 21 to go to the Vietnam War. And he was a sick kid, and he was a very small man who just worked on a farm. He was a really simple guy, but he still just did what he thought was the right thing. And he went over there, and he was a digger, so they would go down the tunnels and put knives into the walls to see if they could find bombs, really scary stuff that he probably never thought he'd come back from. And that really impacted me as a kid, growing up and not really having a dad because of the PTSD that he had, and all the following impacts of Agent Orange on our family, and how it just, the onflow effect of the Vietnam War has had in my entire life. But just respecting that he's just the most gracious, soft, kind person that you'd ever meet. And I had a lot of respect for that. So Father's Love was my gift to him. I think I released it on Father's Day a few years later after his 70th birthday. And I'm really glad that I got to do that. And if you see the YouTube video, I actually interviewed him for the first half of it. It's just in black and white, just interviewing him about his journey. And then I've got the song with some photos of him just doing silly stuff. But it's just for people to know my dad a little bit.
Can you tell me more about your debut EP that released called The Powder of Love?
Powered by Love, yeah. So that was my first experience of, I guess, recording a group of work and working with just one producer. Jason Millhouse in Brisbane was amazing, and I met him through an APRA meetup group. And it's a collection of, I guess, songs that I initially had written sort of around that time. Power by Love I wrote with Shane Nicholson at that same retreat in 2019. I went back and we wrote that song together. And it was kind of, so a friend of his band and a lady who was there, her husband, had passed away a month before that retreat. So there was this real, and it was, he'd taken his own life. So there was this real sadness over the whole retreat. And that song was kind of a reflection on that pain of someone taking their own life, and when we lose someone that we desperately love and is so involved in our entire lives, how to move on from that. And it was really about coming together and supporting each other and reflecting on that joy that even when we lose someone, we have each other and we can love each other into being healed. But also before, like, hopefully if we love each other more, there won't be people taking their own lives because they're surrounded by people that they love. So it's kind of that full circle of life that we've got to love each other no matter what. And that's the best way forward for anything because it brings us together. So a lot of those songs were, based on love and connection, and whether it was self-love or whether it's love for other people or compassion and kindness and all those sorts of things is probably inspiration for most of the work that I do.
So what was it like going to the recording studio when you first started?
I don't know. Like, I think it took me some time to build up confidence that I could sing. So I was working with a blues band in Melbourne for a while, and we literally rehearsed for like a year and recorded an entire album. We did 3 gigs, and I was so nervous. If you'd see me singing in that band, I was like a stick standing in front of like a full-piece band who were incredible musicians, all a lot older than me. And I was very nervous, and I kind of just switch off when I'm in the studio and I just let my heart sing the way that I want to sing. But it took years and years of encouragement from people in that band or my husband or other people around me who had heard me sing. One time my dad, we were going for a walk, and I remember telling him, I was like, Dad, I just don't think I have the voice for this. I don't think I can sing. It's not good enough, and I constantly had that feeling of I'm not good enough. And my dad just turned to me and said, honey, you have the exact voice that God wants you to have because that's the voice he gave you. And I think there was just something really reassuring and beautiful in that, as I just realized at that moment that this is the voice I have. I can't change it. I can manipulate it and I can train it and I can take care of it so that it's as good as it possibly can be. But it's the voice that I have. And so I've just got to use what I've got. And I think that's a good message for everyone. We've got to use what we've got and trust that it's exactly what it's meant to be.
So is God a part of your life?
Yeah, I grew up in the Christian faith, and it's something that I don't think will ever go away. In the church, and ask me about this all the time because I was sexually abused by someone who manipulated me using the Bible for 8 years of my childhood. So it's a very valid question, and I totally understand it. And all I had when I was desperately seeking answers but not able to talk to anyone about what was going on was a really out-of-date encyclopedia and a Bible. And so I studied the Bible a lot, looking for answers as to why I was feeling the way I was feeling. I was so confused as a child and a teenager, trying to understand the pain that I was feeling and, what had happened and what was going on. And that was a really, really long process. The one I learned through that is that there's a lot of wisdom in the Word of God, and it has helped me guide my life and make some big decisions. And that, whether there is a God or not, I think that's something that everyone has to make up their own decision on. I've never been one that feels like I have to force it on people. But I do think there are some fantastic stories in the Bible that are great moral building, stories that help us understand why it's important to be kind to others and kind to ourselves. And it's helped me live a really good life, not holding on to anger and bitterness, being able to have forgiveness and just trusting that things are going to work out no matter what. Makes life more enjoyable.
So can you tell me more about I Need Faith?
Oh, okay. That one, I've been singing that song to myself for many, many years. I struggled with mental health, as I've mentioned a few times now, a lot. And some of that mental health, when I was at really low points, I was extremely suicidal, and I fantasized about suicide myself. So I understand and have a lot of compassion for that emotion of wanting to give up, and not because it's so hard to push past those moments. And that song, I Need Faith, was the song that I would sing at the piano when I had just lost everything, when I was ready to give up and I was beside myself, not wanting to go on anymore. I would sit at the piano and I sang myself that song. So that's the song that saved me, and it's a very personal song. And I was very nervous about releasing that one because it's so vulnerable to my own story. But at the same time, I want to be as vulnerable as possible in the artist that I am, to share the story and the journey that I've been through, because I am in such a better place now. I've learned so much about myself. And I think it's important for people to know that mental health and sadness and all the things, depression and anxiety and the stuff that we go through, aren't permanent, and they can get better and they will get better. And we have to find things that are healthy that help us through. For me, music and art was the healthy thing that saved me in those moments. And that's, I Need Faith is the reason why I say music saved my life, because I literally would be ready to end my life and I would sit at the piano and I would sing that song and it would make me feel so much better.
So can you tell me more about Love Me?
Yeah. So Love Me was a big project that I got funded for by my local council last year. I was very grateful to do that. So I've got a nice music video on a waterfall on my YouTube channel, so go check that out. It was a really fun video that we did at nighttime. And the song was probably a bit of an angry song. So I guess I was a lot of, as much as my faith has held me through a lot of things, there's still a lot of pain that I experienced from people who were actually saying that they were Christian in the church, just being really judgmental and self-righteous and horrible. And to the point that I was like, I'm so over being judged by people, especially in the church, people who are supposed to be my family, my brothers and sisters, and of similar faith. I've never understood how and why people could be so vain and jealous and bitter. And some of the most hurtful people in my life have been, they call themselves Christians. So for me, Love Me was coming from a place of pain and anger and hatred and frustration, where I just want people to love, not just to love me, but to love each other, like I said. And I felt like, I think sometimes in the church and in the world, actually, the fashion industry and the makeup industry, is especially as women, we're constantly being told we're not good enough unless we have this product, or we're not good enough unless we follow this set of rules, or we're not good enough if we don't, do have the right job or have the right waistline or whatever it is. We're never good enough. And it's, it's enough to drive every single person on the planet mad, constantly saying that we're not good enough. So Love Me was my reflection and expression of that frustration and anger. When I would be in nature and I would see, I love flowers. And in the chorus, it says, like a flower in the field, I don't need to be healed. And I think that was that moment where it's like, I felt like I wasn't good enough because I'd been abused, or I was raped as a child, and so I wasn't pure, and all this stuff that's kind of constantly, you haven't grown the right way and your branches are crooked or whatever. It's like, but we don't judge nature for not being perfect, but we judge each other for not being a certain standard of perfect that no one can ever live up to. And it just, it really annoys me. And I think it annoys a lot of us. And so that song did really well, and I was really proud of that one, because for me, I think it hits the nail on the head. We should love each other, and beauty in the eye of the beholder. And I think everyone is beautiful in however they look and whatever they choose to do, as long as they're choosing to own who they are. They're not a tree trying to pretend to be a flower, and they're not a flower pretending to be a mountain. We can just be who we are and enjoy that and appreciate that, and then appreciate each other as well.
So, can you tell me more about your latest single called Faith in Us?
Another faith song. Is this making sense, by the way? Yeah. So Faith in Us was a song that I wrote last year in January. I had the opportunity because I'm also an actress, and I got called up to actually act as a country singer, which was like the easiest acting job I've ever done, on a TV show called Young Rock, which is by NBC. And they were filming this Nashville scene, and I had to sing a song called Honky Tonk Man by Dwight Yoakam. And it was sort of set in the 80s. So I got to wear this big blonde wig, and I got to sing for a couple of minutes, and they recorded in a studio. It was a TV show. But this song, they called me up literally like the day before shooting. They're like, do you know this song? And I'm like, oh, it's a country song, it'll be fine. And I'd never heard the song before in my life, and I'd never really played that type of country music before. So I learned the song in 16 hours, and I recorded it, and it was great. And that was a fun experience. But so I wanted to challenge myself to write a song in that style. So it's got a similar rhythm, it's a similar BPM and sort of style to that, you know, inspired by Honky Tonk Man. But the Faith in Us kind of goes back to that moment of I was feeling better about my mental health, and, you know, I just worked with my hero, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, as an actress. Like, that was kind of a highlight of my acting career so far. And I was, you know, I was feeling like I'm finally doing what I want to do, and living this life that I want to live. And Faith in Us was kind of like, again, this whole sentiment of connection and coming together and overcoming things that happen to us in life, and not letting it define who we are. And I think for me, being an artist, being an actress, being a writer, songwriter, podcasting, all that stuff, is not letting the stolen years of my childhood and the abuse that did happen define and destroy the rest of my life, because that wasn't my choice as a kid. I didn't have control over that. But I do have control over my life as an adult. And I have, don't get me wrong, I've done countless years of therapy, continuous years of therapy. And I've been on different medications. I've had hospital stays. I've gone full crazy, I promise. And it takes a lot of hard work, and it means being consistent. But I just want to get to that point where people understand that if you put the hard work in with your mental health, you can get better, and that things can get better, and that life can actually be worth living and enjoyable. And I got a kids choir to sing on that song with me. And it was 15 kids, a few boys, my kids were involved as well, and mostly girls. Because when I hear girls sing the lines of that chorus, I'm not what happened to me, I am who I choose to be. I just get chills, because it's, you know, it's telling kids and it's empowering other people that, you know, no matter what happens to you in life, we are human and we're resilient, and you can get through it on the other side, and you can become better for it. But it's a choice that we all have to make on a daily basis. And sometimes the choice is easy, and sometimes the choice is really hard, and sometimes we make the wrong choice. But every day is another day to change that choice. So that was that song, and it's done really well in Australia. It just hit number 2, I think, on the country radio charts over there. And I have had the blessings of finance to release my music to any other countries yet, but I've been traveling to America, and I'm in the UK right now, and I'm working on building my relationships with the right people to be able to extend and create, release more music, but also release the music I already have into those countries as well.
And finally, can you tell my listeners where can I find you on social media?
Yep, so all my social media is Rae Leigh AUS. So it's Rae, it's RAE, Leigh, LEIGH, and AUS is for Australia, so AUS. And it's all just one word, so Rae Leigh AUS. And if you Google Rae Leigh, I have a website and YouTube channel and everything, so it all comes up. And Rae Leigh is 2 separate words. So my first name is Rae, like the hero from Star Wars, and Leigh is the fancy spelling, so LEIGH.
Thank you for touching me this evening.
Thank you so much for having me, Ruben. I feel like I've talked a lot, so I hope that's not overdone it for you.
And I wish you all the success.
Thank you so much. Stay in touch, and I wish you all the best too. Keep up the good work.
Enjoy the safe journey back to Australia.
I will, yeah. I head back there on Sunday, so I'll enjoy a few more, hopefully, sunny days in Manchester.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
All right, take care.
Bye.